Welcome to the Stoic Storyteller, your sanctuary for raw, unfiltered stories about the darker side of human nature. Here, we dive deep into the reality of life, the toxic relationships, the bitter betrayals, and the quiet, calculating art of absolute justice.
How well do you really know the person you sleep next to? Today's protagonist was a brilliant forensic accountant who discovered his wife and her twin sister were secretly swapping lives to drain his wealth. They thought he was just a boring numbers guy. They didn't and oppose. Tino, he was quietly auditing their entire existence, preparing a financial trap that would erase them completely. Here we go. I make my living finding things that powerful people want to keep hidden. I am an elite forensic accountant, a partner at a top-tier firm in Manhattan. When billionaires try to hide assets in offshore shell companies, or when corporate executives embezzle from their own foundations, I am the bloodhound the federal courts send in. My mind operates on pure logic, patterns, and anomalies. I see the world in ledgers. But for all my professional brilliance, I was entirely blind in my own home. 10 years ago, I married Evelyn Kensington. The Kensingtons were an old-money Boston family, or at least they pretended to be. In reality, their generational wealth had dried up decades ago, leaving them with nothing but a massive, decaying estate, expensive tastes, and a staggering amount of hidden debt. I was the golden goose. I paid off Evelyn's father's crushing debts. I funded her younger brother's failed tech startups. I bought Evelyn the sprawling Connecticut mansion she had always dreamed of. I gave them everything, assuming my devotion would earn their respect. It earned me their contempt. To the Kensingtons, I was new money. I was a boring, number-crunching workaholic with no aristocratic pedigree. At family dinners, Evelyn's father, Richard, would sip the $1,000 scotch I had purchased and loudly lament how Evelyn could have married a senator or a hedge fund heir. Evelyn would just laugh, patting my hand condescendingly, telling me not to take it personally. I swallowed my pride. I loved her deeply. I thought her occasional coldness, her sudden shifts in mood, and her extended spa retreats were just the quirks of a high-society woman. I was a fool who believed that an impeccable ledger at work meant my personal life was equally balanced. I didn't oppose. Tino, I was sleeping next to a monster. My profession trains me to notice the tiniest discrepancies. A misplaced comma, a date that doesn't oppose. T-a-line, a signature that leans half a degree too far to the left. The first anomaly in my marriage appeared on a Tuesday in late October. I had returned home early from a grueling 2-week audit in London. Evelyn was in the kitchen, pouring a glass of wine. When I wrapped my arms around her from behind and kissed her neck, she flinched. It was a microscopic tightening of her shoulders, a brief hesitation before she turned and gave me a practiced, radiant smile. "You and oppose. Rehome early, darling," she said, her voice perfectly smooth. But as she handed me a glass of water, I noticed her left wrist. 3 weeks prior, Evelyn had burned her wrist on the oven rack. A nasty, angry red blister. The wrist handing me the glass was completely flawless. Unblemished, pale skin. I frowned, touching her wrist. "Your burn. It healed incredibly fast." She pulled her hand back smoothly, not missing a beat. "Dr. Evans gave me a miraculous experimental cream. You know how much I hate scars." It was a perfect excuse, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Over the next month, the anomalies multiplied. Evelyn was violently allergic to shellfish. One evening, I caught her absent-mindedly picking a piece of shrimp off a platter at a gala before abruptly dropping it when she saw me looking. She suddenly forgot the name of our neighbor and oppo's dog, a dog she had purportedly hated for 5 years. Her handwriting on a grocery list lacked the sharp, aggressive slant she usually used. To anyone else, these were simple brain fogs. But to a forensic accountant, these were red flags screaming in the dark. Someone was cooking the books of my life. I am not a man who acts on emotion. I act on evidence. One evening, I casually confronted her. We were sitting in the living room, the fire crackling. I brought up a trip we had taken to Paris for our first anniversary. A deeply emotional trip where we had been caught in a thunderstorm near the Louvre. "Do you remember the little cafe where we hid from the rain?" I asked, watching her eyes intently. The one with the green awning? Evelyn smiled warmly. Of course, David. The coffee was terrible, but the croissants were divine. The awning had been bright red, and we had ordered tea, not coffee. Evelyn, I said slowly, my voice carefully neutral. Is there something you need to tell me? You and Appos, V been different lately. Her warm smile instantly vanished, replaced by an expression of wounded outrage. It was a masterclass in manipulation. She began to cry, accusing me of being paranoid, of working too much, of interrogating her like she was one of my corporate suspects. The next day, her father, Richard, called me. His tone was furious and dripping with condescension. Evelyn is in tears, David, Richard barked. She says you and Appos, reacting like a controlling lunatic, questioning her memory. We warned her about marrying a man so obsessed with control. If you don an Appos, fix this, I will have my lawyers draft separation papers. We will not tolerate you abusing my daughter and Appos' fragile mental state. I apologized. I backed down. I played the role of the overworked, paranoid husband perfectly. Because I knew that if you want to catch a rat, you don an Appos. Bang on the walls. You lay a silent trap. Evelyn had an identical twin sister named Clara. According to the Kensington family lore, Clara was the wild child who lived permanently in a bohemian commune in southern France. She supposedly despised the US and never visited. I had only met her once, briefly, at our wedding 10 years ago. I waited until Evelyn announced she was going on a weekend yoga retreat in Sedona. The moment her car left the driveway, I went to work. I didn't in Appos. Hire a private investigator? I didn't in Appos. Want any leaks? I installed high-definition, motion-activated hidden cameras in the main living areas and, crucially, outside the master bedroom. Then, I told Evelyn I was flying to Tokyo for an emergency week-long audit. I drove my car to long-term parking, rented a nondescript sedan, and checked into a cheap motel a few miles from my own estate. I opened my laptop and tapped into the live camera feeds. For 2 days, the house was empty. On the third night, a taxi pulled up to my driveway. I watched the screen, my heart pounding a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. The front door opened. Evelyn walked in. But wait, Evelyn was supposed to be in Sedona for 3 more days. She dropped her bags in the hallway, walked into the kitchen, and poured a glass of wine. Then, she pulled out her phone and made a call. I had tapped the house and Appos' Wi-Fi router, intercepting the audio. I and Appos in, the woman on the screen said. Her voice was exactly Evelyn and Appos' but the cadence was slightly sharper, more cynical. The idiot is in Tokyo until Friday. You have 4 clear days with Marcus before we need to swap back. A cold, horrifying realization washed over me like ice water. Make sure you wear the perfume he likes. The voice on the other end of the phone replied. It was Evelyn. My Evelyn. And Don and Appos. Forget, Clara. David likes his coffee black on Wednesdays. Don and Appos. Slip up again like you did with the Paris story. He and Appos. Getting suspicious. The woman in my kitchen, Clara, laughed. Relax, Evie. The man is a human calculator. He has no emotional intelligence. Enjoy your real husband. I and Appos. Hold down the fort with the ATM. I sat in the dark motel room, staring at the glowing screen of my laptop. The silence was absolute. I wasn't an Appos. Just being cheated on. I was being systematically managed. Evelyn and Clara were identical down to the bone structure. They had used this genetic anomaly to execute a sociopathic 10-year-long fraud. Whenever Evelyn wanted to spend time with her secret lover, who apparently she considered her real husband, Clara would fly in under the radar and take her place in my bed, in my house, and in my life. They had shared me. They had shared my wealth. And the entire Kensington family, including her arrogant father, had to be in on it to maintain the illusion of Clara living in France. I didn't in Appos. Break down. I didn't in Appos. Throw my laptop against the wall. The initial shock quickly burned away, leaving behind a terrifying, absolute clarity. They thought I was just a human calculator. They thought my obsession with numbers made me emotionally blind and easy to manipulate. They had drastically underestimated what a human calculator does when he finds a massive, glaring deficit in his own ledger. I opened a secure, encrypted folder on my laptop. I began pulling my own financial records, cross-referencing credit card charges, flight manifests, and offshore shell companies that I had previously ignored because they belonged to my wife. By dawn, I had the full picture. Using my money, Evelyn had secretly purchased a $2 million home in Seattle. She was legally married under a slightly altered maiden name to a man named Marcus Vance, a struggling artist. I had been fully funding her idyllic second life, while Clara was paid a handsome salary from my accounts to play the dutiful wife in Connecticut. They had stolen a decade of my life. They had made a mockery of my home and my bed. I closed the laptop as the sun rose over the motel. I wasn't oppose. Going to confront them. I wasn't oppose. Going to file for a messy divorce where they could play the victims and demand alimony. I was going to use my unparalleled skills to sever every financial artery they had. I was going to meticulously, legally, and permanently erase the Kensington family from the face of high society. They had built their fragile glass house on my foundation. Now, I was going to detonate the foundation. I returned from my fake Tokyo trip on a Friday evening, walking through the front door of my sprawling Connecticut estate with my luggage and a perfectly tailored smile. Clara was waiting in the foyer. She wore Evelyn's favorite cashmere sweater and a string of pearls I had bought for our 5th anniversary. She rushed forward, wrapping her arms around my neck and pressing her lips to mine. It took every ounce of psychological conditioning I possessed not to violently push her away. Her lips felt identical to Evelyn and Appo's. Her voice was a flawless imitation, but up close the illusion fractured. The perfume was slightly too heavy. The rhythm of her breathing was different. I was kissing a phantom, a parasitic twin who was getting paid out of my bank accounts to play the role of a loving wife. "I missed you so much, David," Clara murmured, resting her head against my chest. "Tokyo must have been exhausting. You and Appo's. So tense. Just jet lag, darling," I replied, my voice smooth and perfectly monotonous. I kissed her forehead. "I and Appo's. Am just glad to be home." For the next 2 weeks, I lived in a waking nightmare. I shared a dining table, a bathroom, and a bed with a woman who despised me, while my actual wife was playing house with her secret lover in Seattle. Clara was a phenomenal actress, but she was arrogant. She thought my lack of emotional outbursts meant I was stupid. I played the boring, predictable accountant to perfection. I bored her with fictional stories of tax audits. I went to bed at exactly 10 p.m. I let her think she had me completely sedated. But the moment she fell asleep, I would slip out of bed, walk into my soundproof home office, and begin systematically dismantling her entire family. Before I could destroy Evelyn and Clara, I had to cut off their safety net. That meant neutralizing their arrogant father, Richard Kensington. Richard was a man who projected the image of a billionaire but possessed the bank account of a bankrupt gambler. He ran a consulting firm in Boston, which was essentially a front to maintain his country club memberships. For years, I had quietly paid off his minor debts to keep Evelyn happy. But as I dug into the dark web of the Kensington family finances, I found Richard's fatal flaw. 3 years ago, Richard had secured a massive $15 million commercial bridge loan from a ruthless private equity group to invest in a luxury real estate development in Dubai. The development was a scam, and Richard lost every penny. How did a broke man secure a $15 million loan? He used me. I found the heavily encrypted digital contracts. Richard had forged my signature and used my accounting firm's corporate credentials to name me as the primary guarantor of the loan. He knew I had the liquid assets to cover it if the private equity group ever came knocking, and he assumed that if I found out, I would just pay it off silently to avoid a public family scandal. He was right about the old David. The new David saw a guillotine waiting to be dropped. I didn't oppose to alert the authorities about the forgery. Instead, using my elite forensic clearances, I legally and quietly submitted a massive portfolio restructuring to the private equity group. I legally decoupled all of my personal assets from Richard's consulting firm, red flagging his account for an immediate risk assessment. By removing my phantom collateral, I triggered an automatic default clause in his loan contract. The private equity group would now demand the full $15 million repayment within 30 days. If he didn't oppose T-Pay, they would seize his historic Boston estate and force him into a highly public, humiliating federal bankruptcy. The countdown clock on the Kensington Patriarch had officially begun. Next, I turned my attention to my own marital assets. In the state of Connecticut, a divorce without a prenuptial agreement usually means a 50-50 split of all assets acquired during the marriage. Evelyn and Clara had spent 10 years waiting for my net worth to peak so they could inevitably blindside me with divorce papers, taking half of my life in Oppo's work to fund their Seattle paradise. I decided to give them half of nothing. You cannot simply hide money offshore. Federal judges will find it, and it constitutes fraud. A forensic accountant knows that the best way to hide money is to put it in plain sight, locked behind impenetrable legal corporate doors. Over breakfast one morning, while Clara was sipping a mimosa and pretending to read a fashion magazine, I placed a thick stack of legal documents on the marble kitchen island. "What in Oppo's this, darling?" Clara asked, feigning mild interest. I and Oppo's gained access to an exclusive, high-yield corporate lockup fund. I lied smoothly, adjusting my tie. It guarantees a 40% return over the next 5 years, but it requires a massive initial liquidity injection. I and Oppo's moving our joint investment accounts, the savings, and the equity of this house into it. I just need your signature to authorize the transfer. Clara's eyes lit up with sheer, unadulterated greed. All she heard was 40% return. She thought she was artificially inflating the massive payday she and Evelyn were planning to steal. Without reading a single line of the dense, 100-page contract, Clara forged Evelyn's signature perfectly on the dotted line. She had just legally signed away everything. The documents didn't and Oppo's transfer our wealth to a high-yield fund. They transferred every liquid cent we owned into an irrevocable blind trust, a legal entity entirely controlled by a proxy board of directors loyal only to me. In the eyes of the law, David and Evelyn Kensington were now effectively broke. With the marital assets secured and Richard unknowingly standing on a financial landmine, I focused my crosshairs on the secret husband in Seattle, Marcus Vance. Through my digital surveillance, I hacked into Marcus and Evelyn's joint bank accounts in Washington state. Marcus believed he was living the dream. He was a freelance photographer who spent his days driving a Porsche and living in a $2 million waterfront home, fully funded by the money Evelyn stole from me. But there is no honor among thieves. As I audited their accounts, I noticed a bizarre anomaly in Clara and Oppo's behavior. Clara wasn't and Oppo's just playing the role of the dutiful twin for a salary. She was actively embezzling from Evelyn and Marcus. Every month, Clara would skim an extra $20,000 from the money I gave Evelyn, routing it through a crypto tumbler and into a secret offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Clara was stealing from her own sister's stolen loot. I smiled in the darkness of my home office. Why destroy them myself when I could hand them the knives to slaughter each other? I didn't in Oppo's stop Clara and Oppo's embezzlement. I amplified it. Using my software, I silently altered Clara's crypto routing protocols. Instead of hiding the stolen money, the system generated anonymous, highly detailed tax forms, 1099s, and routed them directly to the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, flagging Clara and Marcus for massive, undeclared income and severe tax evasion. I had turned their paradise into a federal crime scene. 2 months passed. I lived in a state of absolute, chilling zen. It was mid-November. Thanksgiving was approaching. The Kensington family had a long-standing tradition of hosting a massive, lavish Thanksgiving dinner at my Connecticut estate. Richard, his snobby wife, their extended wealthy friends, and Evelyn would gather to drink my expensive wine and subtly mock my career. According to the intercepted text messages, the twins were planning their next swap 3 days before Thanksgiving. Clara was flying back to her commune in France, or rather, a luxury hotel in Paris funded by her stolen money. And the real Evelyn was flying back from Seattle to host the family dinner. It was the perfect venue. I wanted Evelyn to look her father in the eye when his empire collapsed. I wanted her to be surrounded by the high society elite she worshipped when her mask was violently ripped off. On the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, I watched the hidden camera feed from my office in Manhattan. A black town car pulled into my driveway. Clara walked out the front door, carrying her luggage. A minute later, a second car pulled up. Evelyn, the real Evelyn, stepped out, looking refreshed and glowing from her time with her secret husband. The swap was complete. The parasite had returned to the host. I closed my laptop and packed my briefcase. I had finalized the legal filings. I had coordinated with the private equity group. I had tipped off the federal auditors. Every domino was perfectly aligned, waiting in the absolute silence of the impending storm. I took the elevator down to the Manhattan streets, the cold November wind biting my face. I hailed a cab to Grand Central Station to take the train home to my beautiful, lying wife. The human calculator was done crunching the numbers. It was time to close the ledger. Thanksgiving at the Connecticut estate was a masterclass in superficiality. The dining room was immaculate, glowing under the warm light of the crystal chandelier. A massive mahogany table was set with antique silver and fine china. Surrounding it sat Boston's old money elite, senators, hedge fund managers, and old aristocratic families that Richard Kensington desperately tried to impress. At the head of the table sat Richard, holding a glass of $500 Pinot Noir, holding court as if he were a king. At the other end sat Evelyn, playing the role of the flawless, devoted high society hostess. I sat quietly in the middle, cutting my turkey, wearing my usual boring, gray suit. "David, my boy," Richard boomed across the table, his face flushed with wine. "Tell us, how are the ledgers? Still counting other people and oppos? As pennies while the real men make the world go round?" Polite, condescending laughter rippled through the guests. Evelyn offered me a sympathetic, patronizing smile. "Oh, Dad, Don and oppos. Tease him. David works very hard to keep us comfortable." "Comfortable, yes," Richard scoffed, taking a long sip. "But a Kensington requires more than comfort. We require vision. Take my new development in Dubai, for instance. 15 million in initial capital. Take stomach, David. Something an accountant simply wouldn't and oppos. Understand." I wiped my mouth with a linen napkin. I looked directly at Richard, my eyes completely dead. "You and oppos. Rewrite, Richard," I said, my voice cutting through the ambient chatter like a scalpel. "I don and oppos. Have the stomach for fraud, which is why I prefer facts." The table went slightly quiet. Richard frowned, not used to me speaking back. Before he could respond, the heavy brass knocker on the front door pounded with terrifying, rhythmic force. My butler opened the door. Heavy footsteps echoed in the marble foyer, completely bypassing polite protocol. 3 men in dark suits walked directly into the formal dining room. They wearing and oppos, wearing dinner jackets. They looked like bulldogs. The lead man stepped up to Richard. "Richard Kensington?" "I am," Richard said, puffing out his chest, though his eyes darted nervously. "Who let you in?" "We are in the middle of a private dinner. I am a federal process server representing the Apollo Private Equity Group," the man stated loudly, his voice carrying to every corner of the silent room. He dropped a thick, heavy stack of legal documents right onto Richard's plate of turkey. "You are in default of a $15 million commercial loan. Because the collateral signature on the contract was proven to be a criminal forgery, the grace period has been revoked. We are executing an immediate asset seizure. The marshals are at your Boston estate right now, changing the locks." The color completely drained from Richard's face. He looked like a corpse. The elite guests around the table gasped, whispering furiously among themselves. Bankruptcy was a tragedy. Forgery was a scandal. Richard's social standing evaporated in 5 seconds. "This is a mistake," Richard sputtered, sweat beading on his forehead. He looked at me, pure panic in his eyes. David, write them a check. Tell them you authorized the signature. Tell them it and Appos. S a misunderstanding. I picked up my wine glass and took a slow, deliberate sip. I can an Appos. T do that, Richard, I said calmly. Because I didn't an Appos. T sign it. You forged my name to steal $15 million. I simply alerted Apollo Equity to the felony. I believe the FBI will be contacting you in the morning. Richard collapsed back into his chair, gasping for air. The guests, realizing they were sitting in the middle of a massive federal crime scene, stood up and practically sprinted for the door. They didn't and Appos. T want the scandal touching them. Within 2 minutes, the grand dining room was empty, leaving only the process servers, a hyperventilating Richard, a terrified Evelyn, and me. The servers left. The silence in the room was deafening. Evelyn rushed to her father and Appos. S sighed, then turned to me, her face twisted in rage and panic. Are you insane? Evelyn screamed, entirely dropping her sweet hostess facade. You just ruined my father in front of the senator. We have the money. David, transfer the funds right now and fix this, or I swear to God, I will divorce you and take half of everything you own to pay for his defense. It was the threat she had kept in her back pocket for 10 years. The threat that was supposed to keep the boring accountant in line. I didn't an Appos. T flinch. I reached into my suit jacket, pulled out a folded legal document, and slid it across the mahogany table toward her. You can an Appos. T take half, Evelyn, I said softly. Because we have nothing. Evelyn snatched the paper. Her eyes scanned the dense legal jargon. Irrevocable blind trust. Total liquidation of marital assets. Surrender of equity. Her breath hitched. She looked at the bottom line. What is this? I never signed this. Look closer at the signature, I instructed. Evelyn stared at the perfect, flawless signature on the dotted line. It was her name. It was her handwriting. But the horrifying realization dawned in her eyes. She had been in Seattle with Marcus when this document was dated. Clara, Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling with absolute terror. Clara signed it. Clara was so excited by the promise of a 40% return. She didn't an Appos. T bother to read the fine print? I explained, leaning back in my chair. She legally surrendered every penny of our marital assets, including this house, into a trust that I exclusively control. You are legally, entirely, and permanently penniless, Evelyn. Evelyn backed away from the table, shaking her head. The arrogant, composed high society wife was gone, replaced by a terrified animal trapped in a corner. You know, she breathed out. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I pressed play and placed it on the table. The audio from the hidden camera filled the silent dining room. The idiot is in Tokyo until Friday. You have 4 clear days with Marcus before we need to swap back. Don and Appos. T forget. Clara. David likes his coffee black on Wednesdays. Don and Appos. T slip up again. Hearing her own voice and her sister and Appos. S mocking laughter, echoing in the room, was the final nail in the coffin. Evelyn fell to her knees. Richard, still clutching his chest at the table, stared at his daughter in horror. He had known about the affair, but seeing the sheer sociopathic depth of the twins and Appos, deception laid bare destroyed whatever pride he had left. 10 years, I said, my voice dropping to a dangerous, icy whisper as I stood up. You let another woman sleep in my bed. You used my life to fund your paradise in Seattle with Marcus Vance. David, please, Evelyn sobbed, crawling toward me, her designer dress pooling on the hardwood floor. It was Clara and Appos. S idea. Marcus manipulated me. I love you, David. Please, we can fix this. There is nothing to fix, I said, looking down at her with absolute disgust. I am the executor of the trust that owns this estate. You are trespassing. Get out of my house. Evelyn, weeping hysterically, dragged her broken father out the front door. They stood in the freezing November rain on the driveway. They had no cars, the trust owned those two. They had no house. They had no money. But Evelyn, clinging to her final delusion, pulled out her cell phone. Her hands shook violently as she dialed Marcus Anapo's number. She thought she could just fly back to Seattle. She thought she still had her secret billionaire husband to catch her. I stood on the front porch, watching her under the glow of the porch light. Marcus picked up on the third ring. Even from the porch, I could hear the absolute chaos through the phone and Apo's speaker. Sirens were blaring in the background. Men were shouting, "Marcus, Marcus, thank God," Evelyn cried. "David knows everything. He kicked us out. My dad is ruined. I need you to wire me money for a flight right now. I and Apo's am coming home to Seattle. Are you out of your mind?" Marcus screamed through the phone, his voice cracking with pure panic. "The IRS and the FBI just kicked down my front door. Evelyn, they have offshore tax documents. They have crypto ledgers tracing embezzled money directly to this house. They and Apo's re-seizing my accounts." Evelyn froze. "What? No, Marcus, Idon and Apo's. Do you know anything about that? You and Apo's the only one with access to those accounts." Marcus roared. "You set me up. You and your psychotic sister skimmed my money and tipped off the feds to save yourselves. You and Apo's dead to me." "Evelyn, do not ever call this number again." The line went dead. Evelyn slowly lowered the phone. She looked up at me standing on the porch. The realization hit her with the force of a freight train. I hadn't and Apo's just destroyed her life in Connecticut. I had used Clara and Apo's greed to orchestrate a federal raid on Marcus and Apo's life in Seattle simultaneously. She had no husband. She had no lover. She had no sister, no father, no money, and no future. I looked at the woman who had stolen a decade of my life, gave her a brief, polite nod, and closed the heavy oak door, leaving her to scream into the freezing darkness. The ledger was perfectly balanced. While Evelyn was shivering in the freezing Connecticut rain, her identical twin sister, Clara, was living a life of stolen luxury. Clara was not at a bohemian commune in southern France. She was sitting on the terrace of a five-star hotel in Paris, wearing a silk robe, sipping a $30 espresso, and looking at the Eiffel Tower. She logged into her encrypted laptop to check the balance of her Cayman Islands offshore account, the account where she had been hoarding the money she skimmed from her own sister and my bank accounts. The screen loaded. The balance read, $0. Clara frowned, tapping the refresh key. A cold sweat broke out on the back of her neck. She tried to log into her secondary accounts. Access denied. Account frozen. She frantically grabbed her purse and pulled out her platinum credit card, rushing down to the hotel concierge to withdraw cash. The concierge swiped the card. It declined. He swiped another. Declined. I and Apo's. "I'm sorry, madam," the concierge said, his polite tone masking a sudden wariness. "The bank has placed a hard lock on all your lines of credit." And he gestured toward the hotel lobby entrance. Three stern-looking men and a woman in plain clothes were walking directly toward her, flashing badges. They were from the Direction Centrale de la Police Judiciaire, the French anti-corruption unit, acting on an emergency red notice from Interpol and the FBI. "Clara Kensington?" the lead investigator asked in heavily accented English. "You are under arrest for international wire fraud, money laundering, and severe tax evasion. We have received an anonymous, fully documented forensic dossier detailing your offshore activities." Clara dropped her designer purse. The realization hit her with the force of a physical blow. The boring accountant hadn't an Apo's just discovered the affair. He had tracked every single digital footprint she had ever made. He had let her steal the money, only to use it to build a flawless federal case against her. She was dragged out of the luxury lobby in handcuffs, screaming in French, her stolen paradise evaporating into thin air. The fallout in the United States was a bloodbath of epic proportions. 6 months later, I sat in the back row of a federal courtroom in Seattle, watching the trial of Marcus Vance. Marcus looked absolutely destroyed. His expensive bespoke suits had been replaced by a standard, ill-fitting orange jumpsuit. He looked 20 years older, his hair thinning, his arrogant posture completely broken. The federal prosecutors didn't and oppose. T even have to work hard. The evidence I had anonymously provided was a masterpiece of forensic accounting. It tracked every embezzled dollar from Marcus and Oppos' clients directly into the accounts he shared with Evelyn. To save himself, Marcus tried to throw Evelyn under the bus, claiming she was the mastermind who had seduced him and managed the illegal accounts. But the prosecution brought in Richard Kensington to testify against Marcus in exchange for a lighter sentence regarding his own forgery charges. It was a pathetic, disgusting display. The men who had once mocked my lack of vision were now weeping on the stand, pointing fingers at each other like cornered rats. The judge showed absolutely no mercy. Marcus Vance was sentenced to 25 years in a federal penitentiary without the possibility of early parole. Richard Kensington avoided prison due to his failing health, but he was fined into absolute oblivion. His historic Boston estate was auctioned off, and he was forced to move into a state-funded, low-income nursing facility, stripped of his dignity and his beloved high society status. When the gavel banged, finalizing Marcus and Oppos' sentence, I stood up quietly and walked out of the courtroom. I didn't and Oppos' gloat. I didn't and Oppos' need to. The justice system had done my dirty work for me. Evelyn was not indicted. The FBI concluded she was too economically illiterate to have orchestrated the fraud. She was merely a beneficiary of Marcus and Clara and Oppos' crimes. But the reality she faced was far worse than a prison cell. With Clara facing a decade in a French prison, Marcus locked away, her father in a nursing home, and her social reputation completely annihilated, Evelyn was left entirely alone. She had no skills, no degree, and no work ethic. The woman who used to spend her afternoons at exclusive spas and luxury boutiques was forced to take a minimum wage job working the night shift at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of Boston. One rainy evening, exactly a year after the Thanksgiving massacre, I received a message on my private phone. It was an unsaved number, but I recognized the frantic, desperate tone immediately. David, please. It and Oppos' Evelyn. I and Oppos' am so cold. I can and Oppos' pay my rent. I and Oppos' am living in a roach-infested studio. Please, I know you hate me, but you and Oppos' a good man. Just help me. I miss our life. I miss you. I looked at the message as I sat in the back of my chauffeured car, driving through the glittering streets of Manhattan. I thought about the 10 years I had spent working myself to the bone, believing I was building a future with a woman who was letting her sister sleep in my bed. I typed a single two-word reply. Check bounced. I blocked the number permanently and threw the burner phone into a public trash can. It was the absolute final severing of the Kensington parasite. She would spend the rest of her life wiping down greasy tables, haunted by the ghost of the billion-dollar empire she had thrown away for a cheap thrill. With the past fully buried, I embraced the immense freedom of my new reality. My forensic accounting firm flourished. My reputation as the man who silently dismantled the Vance empire, though never publicly proven, made me a legend in the underground world of high finance. Powerful people feared my ledgers, and honest people paid me millions to protect theirs. But wealth and vengeance, no matter how satisfying, do not keep you warm at night. I found that warmth in the most unexpected place. During the fallout of the Vance investigation, I had crossed paths with Elena Rostova, the lead DOJ prosecutor who had put Marcus behind bars. Elena was nothing like Evelyn. She didn't and Oppos' care about designer labels, country clubs, or old money prestige. She was sharp, brutally honest, and possessed an intellect that matched my own. We initially bonded over coffee, discussing the intricate complexities of offshore tax havens and the psychology of corporate criminals. Slowly, the professional respect evolved into a deep, unshakable admiration. Elena saw me not as a boring accountant or a walking ATM, but as a brilliant, stoic man who possessed an unwavering moral compass. She loved the way my mind worked. For the first time in my life, I didn't in Oppos' have to hide my true self. I didn't in Oppos' have to play the role of the subservient provider. With Elena, I had a true partner, a woman who could stand back to back with me against the world. 3 years after the day I first noticed Evelyn and Appo's missing burn scar, I stood on the terrace of my new penthouse in Manhattan. The city stretched out below me, a sea of lights and endless possibilities. Elena walked out onto the terrace, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders and handing me a glass of black coffee, just the way I liked it. She leaned her head against my shoulder, and I wrapped my arm around her, kissing the top of her head. I looked out at the skyline and thought about the journey. I had been dragged through the absolute depths of humiliation and psychological torture. I had been married to an illusion and robbed by the very people I swore to protect. But pain is the ultimate teacher. It burned away my naivete and forged me into a weapon of absolute precision. The Kensington family had chased illusions, status, forbidden romance, and stolen wealth. And in the end, their illusions collapsed, leaving them with nothing but the brutal, suffocating reality of their own sins. I had relied on facts, logic, and undeniable truth, and the truth had set me free. I took a sip of my coffee, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. The storm had passed. The numbers were crunched. The debts were paid in full, and the final line was drawn. My ledger was perfectly balanced.
I've been broken, burned to dust, faded dreams in ashes rust. But from the fire I will rise, reclaiming all that once was mine. I won't regret what's in the past. I am the future built to last. Reborn from ashes, watch me fly. No more tears, no more goodbyes.